Hello and welcome to Queendom TV, and today we're going to be doing the second video discussing the Hollyweird contracts. Now, I did a video about NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, which is the first video in the contracts playlist, so check that out if you want to hear what that is about, because that is a very interesting type of contract that we're going to discuss. I think this stuff is really important for us to discuss, guys, because these are the types of hidden things that the people in the industry don't want us to know, because if we know them, then we can start to see little hints of why a lot of these contracts are dodgy, maybe why we're not hearing certain things by the stars and celebrities that we support, why they're not exposing certain things, etc, etc. So today I'm going to be going through the X Factor season 17 terms UK. Now, this entry closed on the 26th of June 2020 at 11:59 GMT. This is the most recent audition terms and conditions I could find. I think because of all this, current situation, they've not been able to film in the same way. So either way, this is pretty recent. Just to give us an idea, now this is already fast forwarded from when Little Mix had gone on, which is the main reason I'd mentioned, well, one of the reasons I'd said we would discuss this. But let's take a look, because one of the points I made in one of my other videos where I was asking you guys if you guys even wanted to hear about contracts is I was saying that sometimes the types of contracts that people sign can be the type where they trap people into things they don't really understand in the long run. So without getting into it and just explaining things that I'm going to have to re-explain anyways, let's get into it. So I've got it here and I've been highlighting, and I've highlighted bits and bobs that I wanted to highlight to you guys. So let's get into it. Right, so okay, so yeah, so the first thing that I've highlighted, nothing too deep, but basically say by submitting this application form, you're indicating that you understand, acknowledge, and where relevant, consent to Fremantle Media Limited, which I believe is the company that runs like all the auditions and stuff, which funnily enough, I actually knew somebody who worked there for a while, collecting and using your personal information in the ways explained, blah, 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 blah. Okay, we'll skip over that one. That one's not so important. Okay, here's a good one. It says, you acknowledge, and I'm going to explain all of these, by the way. It says, you acknowledge and agree to abide by the rules, regulations, terms, and conditions for this competition as determined by the producer. And you acknowledge that the rules may be changed, including, without limitation, verbally, at any time by the producer in their sole discretion. The producer's decisions regarding all elements of the application process, the competition, and the program shall be final and binding. So let's unpack this, guys, because there are already some hints of some of the things I was telling you guys about in here already. Acknowledge and agree to abide by the rules, right? So they're going to state some of the rules in this contract. If you guys want to read this stuff, by the way, you can literally Google it. I got this from the ITV UK website, so you guys can just go on there. If you just Google X Factor terms and conditions, it's probably going to come up as one of the first ones. You can have a look for yourself. So they've got some rules here, but the bit that I wanted to highlight here is the part where it says, and you acknowledge that the rules may be changed, including without limitation, verbally, at any time by the producer in their sole discretion. So their sole discretion means they're the only one. They can choose for themselves when they want to change the rules. They're saying that they can change the rules whenever, and you're agreeing to rules that could change that you don't know about. So pretty much you're agreeing to whatever. That's really what's happening here. And obviously they don't make it seem like that, because us as human beings, we tend to think, oh, somebody's going to look after us, or somebody's going to have our best interest at heart, or they're not going to take things too far. I like to think I live in the real world, and I think the other end of the spectrum. I wonder what on earth is going on behind closed doors that these people probably had to do, that they couldn't talk about, that were changed rules, That, for me, is already showing, and again, it's the sole discretion of the producer, i.e., once you sign this, there is no like, oh, but you never told me that before and I don't want to do it, because you've already signed to say that you're going to abide by rules even if the rules change. Do you see what I mean about trapping? people. So again, imagine being a young person, or not even necessarily a young person, somebody who's not in the legal system, which I'm not in the legal system, guys. And I just want to highlight this as well. I'm not trying to pretend that I'm no lawyer or anything, but in fact, the reason why I only want to make the videos more based on the fact I'm not a lawyer is imagine how much a lawyer could pick holes in something like this versus me, you know. And this is the thing about contracts. A lot of people write very good contracts, because if you write a good enough contract, you can pretty much get away with anything. Like, in pretty much, even if something, if you sign to say something, right, there you can have a legal case in court. Even you could sign to say something like, I sign myself to be, you could sign a contract to be somebody's slave, right? Now, to some extent, you can be held to that contract, even if slavery is illegal, right? Because you have signed a legal binding contract. This is what people do with contracts. Because if you sign something, the idea is you are not supposed to sign something you haven't read and you haven't understood. And if you don't, you're supposed to do something about that, right? Anyways, let's continue. So it says, please note that to audition for the program, you must be at least 16 years old by 26th of June, 2020. Now, I mentioned this specifically because it's crazy to me that there would be teenagers having to sign this kind of course, 18 is still a teenager, but even as young as 16, having to sign something like this, right? That's like signing your life away. Imagine at 16 years old, signing away. Let's continue. Let's just continue. Right. In the event you are and these are all my highlights, by the way, there's so much more stuff. It says, in the event you are invited to attend an audition, you hereby irrevocably grant all consents necessary for the producer to film and record such audition and to use recordings featuring your contribution, including, without limitation, your image and or voice in connection with the program and or ancillary rights in the program, and to exploit the same in all media throughout the world in perpetuity without the need for payment to you. I.e., we can use your content in however way we want, for whatever we want, and you have no right to earn money from that directly. No right. Goes on to say, you agree to waive any moral rights that may exist in relation to your contribution. Moral rights. So moral rights, again, another weird, ambiguous, vague term, but pretty much a moral right could be, well, if you're using my videos, surely I should get a cut of it, right? That's like a moral right kind of thing. Well, no, because they just said it before that you can't get that. Okay, that one's just normal. Oh, this is the bit that was the kicker. This is the part where when I saw this, it confirmed exactly what I said to you guys, right? Here's the big trap. Here's the big trap. Should you be selected to take part in the program, you agree and undertake to enter into further contracts with the producer, and you agree to abide by the terms therein. What they are asking right there is for you to say, to sign this contract here, right? These terms, by auditioning and signing up, you're saying that whatever contract comes after that, you are required to sign those contracts. Do you understand? Now, some people might say, well, even though they have to sign those contracts, of course, they have to read them first. If you are a person, and this is why I say knowing and understanding contracts is important, because saying something like that they could easily flip back at somebody like me and say, well, of course they're allowed to, they have to read and sign the contract as well. We didn't say they, well, it does say, it says, should you be selected to take part in the program, you agree and undertake to enter into further contracts with the producer, and you agree to abide by the terms therein. So it's like you're basically agreeing to a contract you've never seen before, right? You're agreeing to a contract you've never seen before, and either they're going to force that if they can, which they probably can because this is what it says and this is what you sign for, and if not, they might just make you think that's how it works, because this is what a lot of people do. One of the things I know that people do in the legal system when it comes to things like contracts and stuff is they utilize the fact that you don't know your rights. Classic example of this is something I experienced from having jobs, right? and it's something that naughty employers like to do, where they don't give employees their due breaks from work. So for example, in the UK, you're not supposed to work more than 4 hours without, I think it's at least a 15-minute break. And then once you get to 6 hours, I think it goes up to a half-hour break, and so on and so forth, or something like that. There are many employers who won't tell you that. They won't tell you that, so that you're just there, work, taking advantage, right? This is what people do. So when I'm saying that it's important to understand these things, as much as they go over our heads and everything, or they can go, because some of this stuff goes over even my head, it's important for us to make an effort to understand, and that's why I'm going to be explaining it more. Then it says, here we go, here's another good one, right? You will not, without the producer's prior written consent, disclose, publish, or discuss with any third party any information relating to the program, your appearance, the production team, or any participants in the program, nor any other information which may come to your attention, including without limitation in relation to the broadcaster, the producer, or otherwise, save where such information is already in the public domain. So, let's break that down. Say that, I'll read it again. You will not, without the producer's prior written consent, disclose, publish, or discuss with any third party information relating to the program, your appearance in the program, the production team, or any participants in the program, nor any other information which may come to your attention, including without limitation in relation to the broadcaster, the producer, or otherwise, save where such information is already in the public domain. So pretty much, this to me is them saying that things that go on in the show, such as and the third party, if you don't understand what a third party is in this scenario, right? The third party would be the two parties that are involved in this contract would be the company that's running the competition, that's one party, and then the other party is the person signing the contract. Those are the two parties. So a third party is like somebody outside of this agreement, and usually the parties are stated as well in the contract. So at the start of this contract, you'll find that it says yes, so they in the beginning of the contract, they kind of discuss who the company is. They say that this is through Fremantle Media Limited Trading, as Thames and Simcoe Limited, for a series of television programs provisionally entitled The X Factor, blah, 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 right? So that's how they do that. So a third party is pretty much anyone. A third party could include me. A third party could include me. So even when we're talking about interviewing people, I wonder if some of them are not speaking up because the third party that they're having to refer, the third parties that they might want to be talking to, they might not be allowed to talk to, right? And I think to some extent, based on some of the things that we've heard, some of the stars speak about, it's clear that they're not completely not saying anything. But I feel like what's happening, and this is what could be happening behind closed doors that we might not know, is let's say that Jessie wants to talk about, for example, we'll use Jessie Nelson as an example, right? She wants to talk about her mental health struggles and the hate and the costuming issues she had on the show, right? She might have had to actually get consent to actually publish that. She might have even had to get consent for her documentary. You know, they might have to get consent when they're talking, when they want to do interviews and include certain things, right? So we may not know that. Now, it looks good on the likes of X Factor and all these competitions to give consent for certain things, because then we think, oh, then it looks like, oh, wow, we're hearing the full story. But to me, that's only a greater trap, because it's like, well, what if they're just saying, yes, we can hear A, B, C, D, E, F, G because they're hiding LMNOP? Do you see what I mean? So let's take that into account. Let's take that into account. And so those are just a few things that I've pointed out from this contract that are pretty detrimental, you know, having to sign away saying that you are going to sign up to whatever comes next, afterwards if you are selected, not being able to speak on a lot of the things. And they've talked about your appearance in the program, the production team, or any participants in the program, nor any other information which may come to your attention, including without limitation in relation to the broadcaster, the producer, or otherwise. It's like everybody and anything and anyone that you see, you are not allowed to comment on or to disclose, publish, or discuss with any third party. Interesting, isn't it? And then the fact that where it suits them, they say stuff like, where was the one we saw before about the sole discretion? And them saying here, you agree to waive any moral rights that may exist in relation to your contribution. So do you know what can happen with something like that? Let's say they do something immoral. That's classed as immoral, which again is kind of one of those subjective things. It depends. Everybody has their own opinion. Purely for the fact that it's written, you agree to waive any moral rights that may exist in relation to your contribution. Whatever they do in court, you might not get anywhere for that one statement, because the judge can say, well, you signed it and it says you agree to waive any moral rights that may exist in relation to your contribution. Why am I pointing all these things out, guys? Because these are the types of hidden traps that are put in so many of the contracts today, taking advantage of the desperation and naivety and ignorance. And when I'm saying naivety and ignorance, I don't mean that in a rude way, because why would somebody going to X Factor know every single contract and how terms and conditions and everything worked, other than the fact that we all are agreeing to terms and conditions all the time? But again, this is also a sign that maybe sometimes take a bit more time to read your terms and conditions, just to make sure that you're not signing up for anything that can come back to bite you in the butt in the future, because this is really what these contracts can do and will do. And once you're there, imagine you go into the X Factor, and this is what I feel like probably happens to people. Imagine you're like, you know what, I'm not even sure if I'll get in. I'm just going to try it. I probably won't get in. A lot of people do that, don't they? They apply thinking they're not going to get in, then they get in. If that happens and you hadn't read this contract and then you get in and then you get chosen, what a shock to your system when you realize all this stuff that you've now agreed to. What a shock to your system when you're loading up and you're upset and you're telling your participants how you're going to start a YouTube channel and talk about how horrible it is being at the X Factor and being exploited. And then somebody comes in and says, oh, no. Do you not remember what you signed at the audition? You're like, I don't remember signing that. Oh, but you did, because you agreed to these terms when you agreed to sign up. So you ain't posting nothing nowhere without our permission. That's what you're not going to do. Right? And if that's the case, and if on top of that there are proper long non-disclosure agreements, kind of like the ones I talked about in the previous video, then the chances are a lot of the stuff that we want to know, a lot of the stuff we don't understand, are hidden in some of these contracts, because they're not able to speak up about certain things. Because of course, X Factor doesn't want you to know things that is going to make it look unfavorable. The chances are, if majority of people knew even just what I've just revealed from my humble knowledge, right, a lot of people wouldn't even be signing up for X Factor. A lot of people would be upset with the likes of Simon Cowell and people like that. Like, how are you putting people through this? I personally, I'm a believer in contracts because I've realized how powerful they are in this day and age. But you see what I prefer to do? Have a simple contract. A simple, understandable contract. I think personally it should be illegal to make people sign unnecessarily long contracts, because I feel like there are so many contracts today. Even when you look at, when you're online and you see these terms and conditions, I feel like they make it 50 pages long on purpose, personally, just so that you don't read it, just so that on page 37 on section 4 subsection B2 they can put in a little clause. That's the real reason they made it all 50 pages, and you don't see it because you didn't read all the terms and conditions. Again, I'm not trying to get onto anybody, for reading terms and conditions and stuff, but this is just the beginning, guys. I'm going to be going more into this. I'm going to be looking for, record labels, see if I can get some examples of the record deals that people signed. And I've already found an interesting source that talks about how to get a good record deal, etc., etc. I'm going to be talking about America's Got Talent next, which, boy, there are some interesting ones in the America's Got Talent contract, so look out for that. And as we do look through into this stuff, guys, take into account how this affects some of the things that we're talking about today, how it affects the stars, how many things could be going on that we just don't know about. Why? Because of the contracts that they signed. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about this video. I know it's a bit choppy because obviously I'm reading in between and some of the word language can be a bit funny and all that stuff, but I hope you guys found this helpful and understandable. Let me know, give me some feedback in the comment section. I would love to hear from you guys. I'm definitely going to be doing more and more contracts, because as soon as I even thought about it and then you guys said you were interested, I was like, we all need to be talking about this way more, especially if there's anybody who wants to go into the entertainment industry or even just in general. It's important for us to know what kind of power people can have over us, you know, with this kind of stuff. So anyways, God bless you all. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in my next one. Goodbye.